And he was just 2 weeks away from retirement. Okay, The Woman Who Fell to Earth is Chris Chibnall's first story as showrunner and Jodie Whittaker's first story as the Doctor. And she's making history as the very first actor to play the Doctor who's blonde since Peter Davison. I'm kidding. I mean, she's a lady person now, and people have been discussing that possibility since about 1980 at least, and folks have been thinking like, yeah, that could happen, that'd be cool, or I don't know if it'd work, but I'd still check it out for years. I mean, except now when there's a third option, which is, now it's proof that the feminist agenda has taken over, blah, blah, SJW hatred, blah, blah. She's really good. She's really good. The story's fine, but it's a really well-balanced story. I mean, clearly the point here isn't hit the ground running with the greatest thing since sliced Blink. It's to introduce the new characters, the new vibe, the new Doctor, and then throw them up against a sort of mediocre villain as sort of a test run for how the whole show is going to work. The Woman Who Fell to Earth, on the whole, is a story that just about does the trick. Jodie is good. Her performance isn't dissimilar to David Tennant's with a little bit of Eccleston and Smith thrown in, and strangely enough, maybe a bit of Pertwee here and there, and that's totally fine. Number one, first episode. Number two, every Doctor since Davison at least has made a point of adding little flourishes of other Doctors in with their performance. Hung Clever Boy is kind of Capaldi-ish and a little Smith-ish and maybe a little bit Hartnell-ish too.
Well, I don't know that I was under any obligation to report my movements to you, Chesterfield.
Chesterton.
Oh, Barbara's calling you.
And you can tell there's potential there to become one of the great Doctors. She's even kind of found her own subtle rhythm to the humorous parts of it. My favorite moment of the whole episode, honestly, is this really tiny moment right here. I don't know why I love that, but I freaking love it. Like, it's... she tosses the claws. It's just... I don't know, the timing was good. Also, if renaming big scary monsters with utterly mundane names like Tim Shaw is going to be 13's thing in the same way that Super Speed Technobabble and Allons-y was Tennant's thing, that's cool. I'm gonna go for it. Disregard for other people's technology, though. Man, she wiped Ryan's phone. He's got pictures of his grandmother on that. Not cool, Doc. Did I get it right when I decided she was a Hufflepuff Gryffindor hybrid in the Harry Potter video? Damned if I know, dude, it's episode 1. I do want to say that I was right about calling the fact that she developed a slight fear of heights from having plummeted out of the TARDIS in her first moments of life, because the one thing she doesn't seem enthused about doing this whole story is climbing up that crane. But she still does it. And she does it to save one innocent man's life. It's 10 and Wilf, it's 5 and Perry, it's what the Doctor does because the Doctor is the Doctor. And why does the Doctor doctor like she doctors? Because... I like the Doctor building around Sonic, because I like the idea of the Doctor as kind of a cosmic tinkerer. It's kind of gritty and DIY and cool that she builds it out of stuff she finds in an auto repair shop, including, for some reason, a bucket of spoons. You know, spoons. A thing they commonly have buckets of in auto repair shops.
Yeah, we found the problem with your Honda Civic, Mrs. McGillicuddy. Your gas tank is full of gelato.
I know it's there so she can have that kind of Capaldi-McCoy spoon moment, and the idea that the Sonic was built with Sheffield steel has got to feel pretty good if you're from Sheffield. Like, if the Doctor crashed in my hometown of Boston, she could make a Sonic from a Dunkin' Donuts cup. Another thing I like about Jodie, by the way, is the fact that, you know, on the New York Comic Con panel, she said Flight of the Navigator was one of her favorite movies, and Flight of the Navigator was my jam when I was 7. So what about the rest of them? Well, there's Yasmin, or Yaz. Again, here's the Doctor naming people, but in kind of more of an affectionate way this time. She's a cop. Yaz is fair-minded, ambitious, quick-thinking, and brave, and in any other season, she'd be the companion. Right now, though, she's kind of stuck being the other one, and hopefully we'll see more of her because she seems pretty cool, but we don't really get to know her that well here. There's Graham and Grace, and they're adorable. A late middle-aged couple who clearly adores each other. Weirdly, Grace actually seems like a more likely companion, and that would have been awesome, actually, a cool grandma in the TARDIS. She's way more adventurous than her husband. It's Graham who winds up being the companion, though, which I guess leads to some interesting stories, since Graham is cautious, not particularly adventurous, sometimes loses patience with his grandson. He's got a new lease on life, though, as someone who just survived a bout with cancer, fell in love with Grace, who was his nurse. And by the way, if this all seems less like Doctor Who than like This Is Us, well, like I said, they're not just introducing a new doctor here, they're introducing a whole new take on the show, one that perhaps leans closer to Russell T Davies' ordinary people are the most important thing in the universe approach to season 1. Oh, also, Grace, his beloved wife, who he got together with after she nursed him back to health, who is the most important person, place, or thing in his life, dies. Yeah, Grace dies. She dies saving the day, she dies heroically, but she's gone now. Damn show. Some people have said this is another example of fridging, and some people have pointed out the show's rather unfortunate habit of killing off nice people of color whenever they want to amp up the feels, but at least she didn't get turned into a Cyberman, right? Right? The real standout character, though, is Ryan. Ryan's a 19-year-old trainee mechanic, and he's Grace's grandson, and Ryan has dyspraxia, which affects motor memory and makes it difficult to do things like, well, ride a bike. Chris Chibnall's nephew has it, and it's a cool thing to see on screen, because invisible disabilities are often, you know, invisible. I'll admit, that hit home for me, for reasons. I don't have dyspraxia, but the bike riding scene at the beginning hit home. So, yeah, anyway, lots of character stuff, lots of real people dealing with real stuff, and yet it's still a Doctor Who story. It's science fiction. There's a monster, and it's still a really interesting monster to pit against the first female Doctor and her gang of unwitting, flawed, but basically good, normal human buddies. I mean, who'd have thought it? Chris Chibnall would be exactly the perfect guy for this job at this time in history. All authors who write scary stuff have this thing, like this one thing that they're scared of more than anything else that kind of influences all of their writing. Poe was terrified he was going mad. Stephen King is terrified of closed-mindedness. Lovecraft was terrified of inexplicable things like non-Euclidean geometry and black people. And I think what scares Chibnall to death is kind of a lack of empathy, specifically a mechanical inhumanity that disregards the individual. In fact, it's really bumming me out that they stuck him with the Silurians and never gave him a Cyberman episode. Ahem. He has never written a Cyberman episode. People dump on Chibnall, but his sense of fairness and justice kind of makes him perfect for this gig. And that's how we get Evil Mecha Dentist. The teeth in the face thing is like weird and scary and tell you everything you need to know about the bad guy. He's a hunter who collects trophies, and he's hunting the most dangerous game, Man, on BBC One. More to the point, he does not give a flying bicuspid about your life or your feelings, because he's just gonna tag some poor rando on the train as his prey and kill him because it's fun. The definition of evil here in Chibnall's new universe is dehumanization. Tim Shaw doesn't care about drunk kebab guy throwing salad at him. The scene is lovely, by the way. He doesn't care about nice security guard grandpa man, and he really doesn't care about motivation tape boy either, though we definitely do, and that's only after knowing him for like a few seconds. So, what's the answer in Chibnall's world when faced with dehumanization? You know she was going to remember who she was as soon as it was time to make the big speech at the end, and it's a little bit cliched by this point, but it's still kind of a cool moment. I like how matter-of-fact it is, too. Capaldi or Smith, and I love both of those doctors, both those guys would have chewed the scenery so much the damn crane would have collapsed. Whittaker, meanwhile, basically just gives you her doctor's 1-minute elevator pitch, and it kind of works. Because this villain does not deserve the freaking Pandorica speech. He's a middle-of-the-road baddie who just happens to embody everything the Doctor fights against. If there's a scene that cements Jodie as the Doctor, this is not it. No, for me, it's still the Wolverine Claws bit, dude. It's awesome. It's not even really the best scene in the episode, because Dude's a freaking legend. But it's still pretty great as a statement of purpose. And that's more significant to me personally than the idea that the Doctor's played by a woman, though obviously that's pretty damn significant. Look, the world kind of sucks right now. Everything's bad. Everything is bad. It's all bad. And for all the gains in terms of equality that people have gotten over the years, there's been just as severe a backlash. It's all coming out on all sides these days, and women have borne the brunt of a lot of it. But I can't tell you the number of people I've seen on Twitter or Facebook saying things like, Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor is the one thing giving me strength, or this episode could not have come at a better time. The good guys needed a win, and so did the good gals, and the good people in general. Good people needed a win. And last Sunday, an audience of viewers around the world sat down in front of the TV, and they saw a woman stand up to the big brutish embodiment of everyone and everything that wants to bully you just because they can, and heard her say, in a loud, clear voice,